In this episode of Velocity Labs, we're installing some sweet-ass Halo LED fog lights in a Saturn. Here's what we're gonna be doing today. We're gonna be installing Halo LED fog lights with Halo LED switches. It's gonna be rad. And this is a 1997 Saturn station wagon. You'll notice here in the front there looks like there should be fog lights, but there isn't. Let's remedy that. Oh, and real quick, in case you're looking for the wiring diagram, here it is. We'll show this again later. We're going to be installing these in the factory looking spots, and I already popped one out to take a look at it. It's just held in by a plastic groove that snaps into the bumper. So we'll be able to drill a hole in these and then mount the fog lights directly in them. This light can be used as car fog lamp, motorcycle HAID lamp, machine shop one word, truck working light, off-road vehicle spotlight, the light of tank, board, RM, the indicator light of high building, and airport. Seems legit. They came with some brackets, but we won't be using those because we're going to mount them flush. Here's all the hardware, the fog lights, 2 relays, and 2 halo switches. We need 2 because the fog lights have 2 functions, the halo light and then the main bulb. Plus, 2 switches looks dope. I'll also be adding this little fuse box to make things easier, but it's not necessary. I looked around the dash to see where I could fit the switches, and they're pretty deep, and after taking off a few panels, I settled on this section right here underneath the vent. There looks like there's enough room here. Plus, this piece is easy to replace from a junkyard in case I mess it up. It's just a few screws and a couple clips, but some little plastic clips on it broke, so I'll epoxy that later. I marked out a couple spots with a punch and then drilled them out. Oh yeah, that looks pretty sweet. You can see that there's still some plastic in the way here that needs to get removed to make room for the wires and electrical connectors. This inner piece is held on by just a couple clips, and we can remove those with a small screwdriver. I tried removing some of the plastic with tin snips, but it was making it crack pretty badly, so I switched to a die grinder and rounded out some nice openings for all the electronics to fit through. This worked way better than trying to cut it, and it almost ended up looking like a factory design. I mean, if you squint and you don't notice the rough edges, uneven cuts, and general deformity of it, it basically looks stock. I did a test fit and I had just a little extra to take off over here, but that will give us plenty of room to get our wires through. With the switch fitment done, now let's fit the fog lights themselves. Removing the factory placement panel is pretty easy. Just grab a screwdriver and/or trim tool and gently pry it out. These fit in here really snug, and hopefully they'll secure the fog lights just fine because I'm planning on mounting them directly to these. I measured out and punched the center, then grabbed the hole saw. Now, the hole size that I need is about 2 1/4 inches, but the only hole saw I could find was 2 1/8. And I think this is gonna be too small, but it's all I got. If it is too small, we'll just break out the die grinder again. I clamped them down to a 2x4 with the clamps, and then drilled out the hole in the center. As expected, it was a little too small though, so die grinder. After that, they fit fine, so we're good to go. Let's take a look at them real quick. Now, you may be wondering, how am I going to secure the fog lights to the factory plastic retainers without any screws or bolts? If you guessed JB Weld plastic epoxy bond, you'd be right. But first, let's see what they look like when they're lit up. Holy shit, that looks awesome. All right, now I'm stoked. Let's get these mounted. First, we'll scuff up the back to promote proper adhesion and then mix up the epoxy. It was a little runny at first, so I gave it a few minutes to thicken up before putting it on the fog lights. I also remembered to use a little epoxy to fix the vent clip that I broke. Once that dried, I did a quick test fit and they look awesome. So I extended the wires on them and mounted them into place. The factory panels are held to the bumper by this ridge, which just clips into place. They're actually a really tight fit and they're not easy to get in and out, so I think they'll hold just fine. Once I got those popped in, then I switched into wiring mode. Get it? Switched. Then I moved into the interior of the car to add my little fuse box and start wiring. I put it right on the driver's side kick panel and I ran constant power to it so I can have the fog lights on even when the car is turned off. However, if I ever want to change this in the future, I only need to change this one wire in the fuse box to accessory power, and that will switch the whole operation to be only on when the ignition is on. So that's a simple change if needed. Now the fun part. No, wait, now the sucky part. Wiring. I'm terrible at this, so you'll get no instruction from me, but here's the wiring diagram again so you can do it yourself. I also have another video explaining this more in depth if you want to check it out. The link is in the description. It's not terribly complex, but it is time consuming and I hates it. Anyway, I wired everything up from under the car, mounted the relays on the strut tower, then wired up the switches inside the car and oh, don't do what I did. I got all the wires ran and connected, but forgot to feed them through the little nut that goes on the back of the switch and holds it in place. So I had to unplug everything and then thread it through and redo it. Back under the car, I drilled about 5 or 6 little holes in the plastic support piece of the bumper so I could zip tie the wires to it and tuck them up out of the way. I got the halos wired up and now we're ready to test those out. So I have the halos hooked up to the bottom button right now. So we'll check those. That guy. So if we did that right, and it looks like we did because I can see around the car, the front halo should be on. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks awesome. Nice and bright. That looks pretty sweet. All right, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up wiring the main bulbs. I doubt I'll ever use them because I love how the halo looks, but we'll wire those up anyway and wrap this project up. Literally, with tape. Everything looks good, so I finished up all the wiring, switched the halos to the top button, main fogs to the bottom button, wrapped up all the wiring, secured it to the bumper with zip ties, got everything tucked away, and it looks awesome. Now, these are $13 LED fog lights from eBay. Are they gonna last? Who knows, but if they fail, I'll let you know. Next up, we're gonna finish the mods and maintenance on the Saturn Daily Driver, and then we're finally installing the clutch in the Eclipse.